Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and number one, he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's Gilbert? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, one and all. This is GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. Just a quick programming note. We'll have a show tomorrow, Johnny Santucci and myself. Wednesday, we will be off, but the rest of the week will be loaded with programming. Best way to stay on top of it is to subscribe to the Barroom Network. You'll get alerts on your devices. Let's welcome in our man, Greg Gabriel. Greg, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you, son.
Now, you told me,
lad.
now you told me you just recently learned something about your Irish ancestry.
Is actually about a year and a half ago. You know, I grew up thinking that I was half Irish. So, and then my daughters had their DNA done, and I go, I don't know about this. So, you know, the way it came out, so I said, my daughter gave me for Christmas the DNA thing. So I had it done. And it came back, I was like 38% Scottish and 12% Irish or 13% Irish. So I wasn't, and it's, they're only a little channel apart. So
that's hilarious. So have you been perfecting your Scottish bra, or is that how it's said?
I don't know. I guess I got to listen to Sean Connery a lot to get that.
There is a great bit on Saturday Night Live where somebody's impersonating Sean Connery. And
I saw it the other day. I laughed. You know, the first time I saw it was the other day. It was really funny.
Oh my gosh! So he's mispronouncing all of the clues on a Jeopardy board, and so it says therapist, and he goes, "I'll take the rapist for $200."
Right.
A classic bit. All right, we've got a lot of football to talk about. Last week, we were introduced to a lot of the new acquisitions, and there was a moment during the press conference that I want to play for you and everyone. I think everyone has seen it, but this was a magical moment for me as a lifelong Bears fan when Ben Johnson was asked about making things easier for players.
The entirety of the offensive line that's coming together here, a lot of new pieces in place. How do you as coaches and your coaching staff, you as the head coach, make that transition easy for them, make the gelling process easier on them?
It shouldn't be easy. This should be hard. You know, the spring should be hard. Training camp should be hard. Anything worth doing is hard. So it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort. In particular, year one, we should not be comfortable as we're coming into the springtime. We're going to load these guys up. We're going to see what they can handle. We're going to fail, and that's okay. That's part of how you learn and how you grow and you get better. And so we're going to encourage that as a coaching staff. So nothing about this is about making it easier. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Greg, what was your reaction when you heard that?
Oh, I thought the whole presser was good, but there's a little thing, and I wondered. I'm going to throw you a little question, see if you noticed it.
Okay.
What have you noticed about Ben Johnson between even now and say his introductory press conference?
He looks like he's aged 10 years. That's one
Fucking
thing.
bags under his eyes. Guy works. You know,
Yes.
I said, this guy looks like Van Gundy. You remember the
Oh, yeah.
NBA coach? Okay, when he stopped coaching the Knicks and went into broadcasting, he looked like a different person because his eyes were all black and he looked, like he never slept, maybe slept 2 hours a night. That's what this poor guy's looking like. He's looking like he's really working hard. He looked exhausted during the presser.
Yes, he sure did. He looked a little better on the second presser when they introduced Deo and another player I'm forgetting. But, yeah, he's definitely been putting in the hours, probably sleeping at Halas Hall.
Drew Dahlman was the other one.
Drew Dahlman, there you go. So, Greg, the theme for today's show is what is going on in March and April, which might explain why he looks so tired because he's so damn busy. Besides, doing the foundational work for a playbook, which, is still in the early stages, I'm assuming. But tell us what is going on at Halas Hall and most NFL front offices right now during the month of March and leading into April.
March is probably the biggest information gathering month of the scouting calendar. And the reason being is, number one, your coaches are full-fledged in now. And first part of March, you're dealing with free agency. Okay, that's out of the way now. Yeah, they'll sign a couple more guys, but the guys they sign now are one-year deal type guys. And some of them could be difference makers on the roster. But it's really now until April 23rd, 24th, whenever the day of the draft is, it's full steam ahead with the draft, but no decisions have been made. And contrary to what you see from different analysts and on Twitter and other things, is that nobody's made a decision yet. They don't have all the information. That's what March is for. You've got the basic medical information at the combine. You got some workout information, but a lot of top guys opted out of the workout part, so you got to wait for the pro days. And some of them, like Jalen Walker from Georgia, he's not going to work out until April 17th. And Michael Williams, the defensive end, he didn't run good last week at the Georgia Pro Day, ran like 4.75, 4.76 around in there. He's going to run again on the 17th because he feels he's still not 100% coming back from the ankle sprain he played with most of the year. But you're getting all that information. The coaches are writing reports. When you put your preliminary board together in February, coaches' reports weren't involved at all. So now the coaches get involved. They're not going to write up every player at their position. They might write up 20 to 25 players. They'll get assigned those by the personnel department. They'll work out some of them. They'll go to the pro days. And there's going to be some guys that the coaches really fall in love with. And, there's this, I tweeted about it the other day. It's such a fallacy that think guys are rising up the board. That doesn't happen. And it's like the analysts or some of these other people are finding out that the pros like these guys a lot more than they originally liked them. But there are some instances, and we can give you a good example would be Bo Nix last year. Sean Payton, if you recall his interview at the Combine, he said, at this time last year, we weren't even thinking about Bo Nix. But then between now and the draft, after we spent time with him, we had a private workout with him, then we said, this is our guy. So that can happen to a couple players, but to say, this guy, and this guy shoots upwards, that just doesn't happen. That's a fan thing, an analyst type thing. Reality is they ought to keep track of all those names that they say are shooting up boards and see where they get drafted. Then they'll find out they didn't shoot up as high as they thought they did. But you're also finding out, some of the guys, say Josh Simmons. Okay, he had a very severe injury, tore his patella tendon. So I did a little research on that over the weekend. Find out, he says, "Oh, I'm going to be good to go." The agent said he's going to be good to go. Might even do stuff at the Ohio State Pro Day. So I did some reading. It can be more severe than, say, an ACL type injury. It's the biggest tendon that you have, and depending how severe, if it's a complete tear or a partial tear, which we don't know, that makes a difference in what they do with the surgical procedure. But the recovery time, this is, and what I found out was just as for athletes, can be 6 to 9 months. Now, he had this injury on October 12th, the game October 12th against Oregon. So he probably had surgery within a week. Okay, 6 months from that. So that's the middle of October, November, December, January, February, March, April. He hasn't even 6 months out yet. And it's usually 6 to 9, which maybe gets you ready for camp. But now you can use as a basis of comparison a guy who didn't have anywhere near a serious an injury. And we could say Kieran Amagaji, he tore a quad muscle, had to have surgery on that. And he wasn't ready until 2 weeks into the season to begin practicing. So everybody is different. It's going to be with, like in his case, it's going to be the doctors are going to make a decision. And let me tell you, all 32 orthopedic surgeons aren't going to have the same opinion. Some are going to say he's good to go. Some are going to say he's a heavy risk for the first year, because of what you're going to be asking him to do. And the last thing you want to happen is for it to tear again, because then he could be all done. So you got to be really careful with an injury like that. So, people saying, "Oh, I got to take that guy if he comes at 10. Wow, there's a big risk involved there. And you don't pull the trigger on that unless your doctors are 100% sure, especially given the fact that not only is he a first-round pick, but a top 10 first-round pick in the case of the Bears.
Great stuff, Greg. Let's talk a little bit more about Josh. So he's going to have his pro day. He's made these claims that he could potentially, as you just said, he could potentially work out. It appears to be hyperbole. It appears to be, agent speak, player overly optimistic, and so forth.
Although I have heard this so many times over the years. I'll give you, who was the running back from Miami? This goes back. Can't think of his name. Great running back for Miami. Tore up his knee.
McGee?
Yeah.
Willis McGee is who I'm thinking.
And Buffalo took him in the first round, like around the 20th pick or something. So same agent, by the way.
Oh.
And he's going to work out on his pro day. You know what he did? He played catch. And missed most of his first season. Yeah. If not all of it.
Right.
And was really never the same player. Mm-hmm. So it turned out to be a wasted draft pick for Buffalo that year. So, again, you got to put the onus on the medical staff.
Right.
And you got to believe now, in the Bears case, they got a new orthopedic surgeon now. Mm. I don't know who he is. They haven't announced it. But he was at the combine, whoever he is. And because, Dr. Bowen retired and he'd been there, I think he got there 10 years before I did. So he was there 30 years anyway, as the orthopedic surgeon, and a very, very good one. So, what this guy says, this man, that's going to have a lot to say on how they deal with them. And I got some other information too, because there's been stuff. I think I was talking to Kuiper yesterday, and we were talking about Pierce. He goes, "Oh, he's got some issues." That's like the fifth person that said that. So I texted a GM this morning. I go, "How bad is it?" "Oh, it ain't that bad." So he said he didn't kill anybody, did he? He goes, so, he's and then we go back to, he's a defensive lineman. They all, they're half nuts to begin with. What the hell is wrong with my thing that I'm getting all those? Can you see that on my screen that it keeps
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I
It
don't know.
appears to be interference or something.
I don't know. Let me take this and go like this. Maybe that. No, it's still doing it. I don't know
Yeah.
what's doing that.
And it happens, I think, that when you talk. No,
Well, then
maybe
I'll
not.
shut up and you do all this.
No, that's not going to work. That's definitely not going to work. It's a cool effect. Let's call it a cool effect. I don't think it's distracting anybody. If
Well, you're
anybody's,
talking and it's going on, so I don't know what it is.
yeah, it's weird. I've never seen that before.
I could get out and get back in if you want to do that. See if that helps.
Yeah, give it a try. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can talk for a couple seconds.
I'll try.
Okay.
We'll read some of the comments here. Scroll says, I would kidnap Genty during his top 30 visit. He's not leaving the building literally. That's one of the big questions of this draft coming up for the Chicago Bears. Should they invest in Ashton Genty if he's there at number 10? A lot of people think that there's still a lot of work to be done in the trenches, and I am of that ilk. All right, Greg.
No, it
It's
didn't
the
go away. In
flashes.
fact,
It's
when
like
I was, yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's like a poltergeist thing. Jeez, that is weird. But I think
Time
we
of the
can live with
year, I
that.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can live with that. It's not too bad. All right, so we got a couple of questions, but before I get to those, I'll just say that I got 2 questions from Samo. I got one from Greg. Keep them coming, and we'll get to your questions momentarily. So what I want to know is, and you've talked about this at length in the past, but regarding Josh Simmons, he's been checked out by hopefully Bears medical staff at the combine. He'll be checked out again at the pro day. So I'm assuming.
Pro day is they'll see what kind of movement he has. Now, when they checked him out, they checked range of motion, they checked stability of the joint, they did an MRI, they know what it looks like inside where the surgery was. But with a guy like that, because anybody who doesn't work out because of a medical situation at the combine, they're asked to come back. They're not made to, but 90% of them do. They come back. What the hell's wrong with that? Just a second.
Looks like the surgery was a guy like.
I don't know what the hell that was. But anyway, they're asked to come back to the rechecks. So rechecks, give or take, around the 10th of April, 10 days to 2 weeks before the draft. And what the purpose of that is to see with an injured guy how much progress he's made. So then it gives them, they can look at the progress he's made from, say, March 1st when he was at the combine to April 10th, April 14th. So say it's about a 6-week period. And then they can guesstimate even better as to when this guy will be ready to play.
Okay. So they would also kind of gauge what progress he's made in between visits, right?
Right. And that's what I mean. So
Okay.
let's see. Like he made X amount of progress between March 1st and April
Gotcha.
14th. Okay. So based on that, they can say, okay, if he's done this over 6 weeks, then over the next 2 months before they start getting ready to go to camp, or 3 months before they go to camp, then we'll say, okay, this is where he's going to be.
Okay.
Or where he should be. Now, and they're not always right. Perfect case is Amagaji. They thought at the combine, at the rechecks, he'd be good to go at camp. They were 6-7 weeks off on that. Because everybody's different. They heal differently. They heal at a different rate.
Could that be why the Bears have a new orthopedic surgeon?
No. Dr. Bowen bought a winery in Tuscany a few years ago. And his wife has been running it. He's been going back and forth. He was going to retire completely, but then he took a fellowship. Well, he did a fellowship when he was real young after residency and stuff at the Hospital for Special Surgery under Dr. Russell Warren, who was the Giants orthopedic and is the dean. He's retired now, but he was the dean of orthopedic surgeons in the league. He at one time had like 14 different doctors that worked for him as fellows were orthopedic surgeons throughout the league. So then Mark had this opportunity to go back to the hospital for special surgery in an administrative capacity where he didn't have to be there all the time, and makes it that much easier for him to go back and forth to Tuscany to do what he wants to do right now. You know, and I know one thing. I looked up the cost of his wine. It ain't cheap.
Oh, wow. Well, good for him. Good for him. So back to Simmons, because he intrigues me a lot. You know, he would be, if he dropped down, let's say if the Bears traded down and he was available in the late teens, I might consider taking him. What do you think about, I know you don't know the answer to this, but if you can speculate a little for us, what do you think the Bears might do? Would they consider drafting a Josh Simmons at late teens if he's available?
Again, they're gonna throw that one on the medical staff.
Okay.
Now he's got one thing going against him. You got a general manager that is in love with length. Mm-hmm. And part of it is this, too. He's got two left tackles. One's got 35-inch arms. The other one's got 36-inch arms. Okay, now go back to the presser last week. Who got a vote of confidence from the head coach? The two tackles, Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones. And it wasn't like nobody asked for it. He outright gave it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So then, and I know they're high on Amagaji, and I went back and watched every single play. And he struggled. Forget he didn't practice all that week. Mm-hmm. And then on the night before the game, because guess what, son, you're starting tomorrow against one of the best pass rushers in the league. Mm-hmm. So, but then you go back, he did a lot of good too. Yeah. And everything he did was correctable. Carries his hands too low before he punches, how he sets up with his kick step. All those things are in fact, you don't even need the training camp to correct those. You can correct those during the off-season program, which starts in like 3 more weeks.
Right.
You know, so it's before they would, and this is me saying this, but before they would make that move to take a tackle, they're going to see how Braxton's doing recovering from his leg, how Amagaji's doing, and what the line coach, Coach Rocher, feels about this guy. And if he says, hey, these guys are going to be freaking good, they're not taking the tackle. Don't forget, they got $50 million they just put into the offensive line. And there's other areas you got to take care of.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I do believe they are going to draft an offensive lineman.
Yeah, me too.
Because of get one into the thing. But I don't believe it'll be round 1. And I also don't believe it'll be a running back.
Yeah.
And you got all these people that want Gentry. This is the strongest running back class that I can remember. I mean, so, and, you know, theoretically, it could be as good as the year we took said, and that 3 went in the top 5. Mm-hmm. But that was a different era, and running backs had a different value.
Absolutely.
You know, so, you know, now you're going to get running backs in the second round that would have been first rounders 20 years ago.
Happy birthday to Sam Jones III. He is 47 years old. And thank you for catching us live, Sam. All right. So regarding Braxton Jones, you said that Coach Johnson volunteered his name and how happy. BT9 is asking, could that have been a smokescreen by Ben? Meaning we're targeting a left tackle, but no, we don't want people
not
to know.
Not the way it came out.
Okay.
Not the way it came out, because again, he's not the guy who does the drafting. He's the coach. Ryan Poles does the drafting.
Right.
Okay. So he gets involved in that, you know, he's telling them this is the kind of guys we want. Mm-hmm. But he's not the guy who pulls the trigger. People got to understand that. You know, that's Ryan's job.
Yeah.
And he did it they're talking about the interior offensive line and how good that is. And he goes, by the way, I really like those two tackles too.
That's right. Okay. You're making a good case. Now, the one thing regarding Braxton that I'd love for you to comment on, he had a tough ankle injury towards the end of last season. So how can they be talking about Braxton Jones when he may not even be working out?
Because he's in there doing rehab all the time.
Okay.
So they got firsthand knowledge of where he's at.
Well, that's good.
Any of the players, they don't have to be there. Braxton's coming off injury. So when you're coming off injury, until you get fully cleared, you've got to be there certain amount of days to do the rehab. But you could say Jalen Johnson or somebody like that. If they want to come in and work out until the offseason program, they're free to. They can do whatever they want. But they can't be. They can be under strength coach supervision. They can't be under position coach supervision. Okay. The position coach can't do drills with them. Strength coach can, because it's a whole different set of rules. But the training staff and the strength staff know exactly where Braxton is and where he's supposed to be. And we're not going to know anything until the off-season program starts. In the Bears case, it starts 2 weeks earlier than the other team. So April 7th, I think, is the day they begin. And the first 2 weeks or 10 days is strictly weightlifting and conditioning. And then they can start doing stuff with the coaches. And they'll probably have one mini camp before the draft. They've done that in the past. They might not. They might wait a little bit. But if they do, even though it's a mini camp, they can still get a lot of stuff answered.
Okay.
By the way, that interference went away.
Yeah, it did. That's good news. Got a lot of questions coming in. Here's one from Samuel on the present topic. He says, is there any concern about the fact that Braxton Jones becomes a free agent next year and Darnell Wright the year after that, which would mean investing more of the salary cap to the offensive line? Strategically, they have to be thinking about that, right?
Yeah, but it's like we'll worry about that next year. First with Braxton, it's who's going to win the job, Braxton or Amagaji? And on projection, they're still going to have a lot of money next year. But who knows what the salary cap? The projected high salary cap is $309 million, which is up another 23 or 24 million from this year. Mm-hmm. And if there's guys they can get out of, and it won't cost them much money, very little money if they don't want them. So they're going to have a lot of money again. It's you start doing that, then you're dealing from a panic mode instead of being smart. You got to take care of today,
right? And
then you start. They're thinking about the future. The biggest one they got to think about is Caleb. Okay, because Caleb, by the time Caleb, and that's 2 more years you can do him, then you can extend him in 2 more years. Shit, he's going to be getting $60 million.
Right. Just I had over the cap, OTC.com, over the cap up, and the Bears currently have $10.5 million in effective cap space. Does that worry you?
No, because number one, I don't believe all that stuff because some of the stuff hasn't come in correctly yet. We don't know if Thuney was redone. Jackson was redone. Exactly what the numbers are, who knows? I looked up yesterday and they had the Bears at 16, and today they got a 10. But Spotrac had the Bears at 30, not counting Jackson's contract, which is going to cost a minimum of 10. So there's always a difference of opinion between those two services. What's correct? I don't know. But when you look at, you're going to need, now trading down actually lowers their rookie salary cap number because they won't be paying as big a number
Right.
For the pick, because a lot of it's based on where the first pick is.
Right.
And the Bears had one of the highest rookie salary numbers last year because they had 2 top 10 picks,
Right.
including the number 1 pick. So it'll be dramatically lower this year, especially if they trade down, because that lowers it even more. Then you need about $7 million to $8 million to run your team during the year between practice squad, having to sign somebody because of injuries and all that. But they haven't touched Jalen Johnson, Sweat, DJ, all those guys. They can easily turn salary into bonus and create salary cap space by one signature. And it doesn't affect the player at all. Now, the key is you don't want to do a player that you're not in love with, and you don't, you want a guy that's going to be here for the long haul.
Okay.
So if you got a problem, let's say theoretically, they think, well, Edmonds might be one and done, and you can get rid of Edmonds next year, and it won't cost that much. Okay, so you wouldn't do a restructure of his contract. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying theoretically.
Okay.
So, but Sweat, he's going to be here. DJ, you could be here. Jalen, you're going to be here. So in fact, Jalen's might say, "Hey, I want more money." Because look at all the money the corners have gotten in the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Besides a ton, he was up near the top. Now Halas down near the bottom.
Yep. That's why when people complain about some of these free agent contracts, I say, don't worry. In a year or two, it'll be a bargain if the player plays well.
Part of the thing is that they're looking at what the anticipated cap's going to be next year, the year after, and the year after. So that's entering into this equation too when they do these contracts.
Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy, the questions are piling up. So let's address some of these. Let's start at the top of my list. This was 20 minutes ago. Samo asked, what happens during the 30 draft prospect visits to Halas Hall? Are position coaches involved? What typically happens there?
Okay. Number one, they cannot work out unless they're local. Local kids can work. They can work out a local kid 10 times if they want at the facility. Now, there are specified schools that aren't, quote, local. Illinois is not a local school. It's actually a Colts school. But Notre Dame is a local school.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Northern Illinois is. Northwestern is. There's one other one. I don't know which one that one is. Those guys can be brought in as local players and work out whenever. Now, remember, it was the year they took Trubisky. They had Kaiser from Notre Dame in 3 times.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
He threw 3 different times in that time period, and it's because Notre Dame was, quote, a local school. Mm-hmm. So, but and those guys from those schools don't count as the 30 visit either because they're local. So the other guys, and every team's going to do it differently. When we were there, we would spend maybe 15, 16, 17 on guys we were interested in drafting in priority rounds to get, or if we had some question marks on. Then the rest were guys that we liked good enough to draft, but they weren't at the combine. Or we wanted as preferred free agents after the draft. And so we would bring them in to really recruit the hell out of them. Get a medical on them, because you can do a medical then. Get a medical on them, make sure they're good, especially if it's a guy that you think about drafting. And we always took at least one every year I was there, took at least one non-combine guy in the draft. A couple times, 2 players we took. But you're not going to draft a guy without a medical. So
Okay.
you're bringing them in to get a medical. And what we used to do is the position coach and the coordinator would talk with them, sometimes together, sometimes one-on-one. And then Jerry and I would talk to them on top of having the medical stuff.
Mhm.
And sometimes Jerry and I tag team. Sometimes it was, I'd spend 15, 20 minutes. He'd spend 15, 20 minutes. But, you might be bringing in 4 or 5 guys in one day. So you got to spread, it's a busy day when
Yeah.
you do that. Poles, the best of my knowledge, has brought in his high round picks every year for a visit. So you want to know who they're going to bring in, who they're going to draft? Watch the 30 visits. It's going to be somebody in there.
Okay. Have you detected also that in later rounds, those players also make a visit?
I don't know because I don't have all the lists.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes, the teams do not have to release the names.
Mm-hmm.
They have to turn them into the league.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're doing it like you work with the other teams. Let's say Bears want to see a guy and Green Bay wants to see a guy. So now you try to work it out with the agent and the player so that they can get both done like back to back. So maybe they fly to Green Bay, do a visit at Green Bay, fly down here, and you're splitting the cost that way too. Okay. And by, working with the team. So that happens quite a bit. Maybe with a top priority guy, you're not going to do that. But what I noticed is that right after the combine, there was a couple teams that already had guys being brought in, which I have never seen. I mean, we're talking like literally within a couple days of the combine, teams with Cleveland brought in 4 guys right away. Usually they start bringing guys in after their pro day. Some guys, they don't want to visit. Their agent doesn't want them to visit until, especially if they're going to work out hard at the pro day and they didn't work at the combine. They don't want them breaking their training mode, and they have them in training mode still. Then when they get done with the pro day, then they're free to do visits.
Okay. Good stuff, Greg. By the way, there is somebody, what's the word? Making believe they're me, an imposter. That's a pretty good picture they grabbed of me. I did not write this, and the guy is saying, why do we want Gentry? We are the same fans that ripped the Lions for picking Gibbs at number 12. You know what? I was one of the few people who liked that pick for Detroit because I likened Gibbs to Marshall Faulk, a pass catching running back.
Here's what I'm going to say about running back. Now, hey, they're going to take whoever they want. Now, I do believe they're going to take a running back high. I don't believe they're going to take one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if you're going to use a first, number one, in most cases, you don't know how he's going to work out physically, but in most cases, you got to look at, well, I could take a running back, he's a one-contract player. Because that's what most of them are.
Right.
Okay. Some of them get to that second contract, but the majority, if you look at it, most of them, the majority don't get that second contract. So wouldn't you rather, doesn't it make more sense to use it on a position that I might have this guy 10 years, assuming he stays healthy. Mm-hmm. So there's that. I look at it like in today's game, that guy's the final piece of the puzzle. Okay. Has this team reached the point where you need one or two more pieces to finish that puzzle, and then you're ready to go? I don't think so.
Yeah, that effectively eliminates 1/3 of the questions that I have for you.
No, that's fine. I get it. I could be totally wrong on that one. I think people are thinking that because Detroit took Gibbs.
Right.
But here's the key. Guess who didn't take Gibbs? The head coach.
Yeah.
He was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He didn't have a say in that pick. How about this? The coaches aren't in the room except for the head coach.
Yeah, but as you've said before, the coordinators are brought in for their input, and that would have been
in your meetings leading up,
right.
you go into the draft room. My dog just opened the door to come and visit me. In your meetings leading up, that's when you're setting your plan. So you know what your coaches feel, but they're not in the room unless you specifically ask them to come in the room. The head coach is the only coach generally in the room on draft day.
Okay, so there you go, guys.
Meaning that Johnson wasn't in the draft room when
sure.
Gibbs was drafted.
Right.
That was a plan that the head coach or general manager had put together.
Gotcha. All right. Let us now go. Tucci, I get to your question. I got questions from Greg, more questions from Sam, Levante, Howie, Cornelius, and on it goes. Let's go to Greg. Will Ben Johnson be satisfied with Tyson Bagent as a backup quarterback? Would Bagent at least be a quarterback number 3 for Ben Johnson? I'm not sure what's going on with the Bagent hate lately.
Why isn't he a 2?
Yeah.
Somebody explain to me why he's not a 2. Who are you going to get right now that'd be better? I'll throw that question out.
That's a great question.
As our rookie, he comes in, has to play 4 games and goes 2-2.
I agree with that. The thing is I this is going to sound outlandish, but under Ben Johnson, Tyson Bagent could become a Jared Goff type quarterback. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, I can't say. We got to see how they mesh together. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if there was a question of bringing in a quarterback,
mm-hmm.
I would say that quarterback would be in the building before April 7th.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't see Bagent at risk for losing his job. Samo with another great question. How involved are the position coaches in building the draft boards? And when does that process start?
The meetings start. I mean, they're going to what brought up a point. That point I was saying that guys are moving up draft boards, right? Okay. So I immediately kind of answered that and I said, well, do you think they change their draft board every day on a daily basis? Guys aren't even in the office. They're at pro days. That draft board isn't changed one inkling. There could be an individual's grade who could be changed a little bit. And to give you an example, we decide what we used to do is we'd go position by position, watch these profile tapes. It would be myself, Jerry, Lovey, the coordinator, and the position coach. And at positions we wanted to take. And we'd go through, let's say they'd go through 15 players, one after another, and then try to stack them. And there could be a guy that we had after watching, and we're watching, say, 100, 150 plays of each player. And the profile tapes were the way we made it. We were supposed to show the strengths and weaknesses. So it wasn't a highlight tape. Okay. And when you watch things back to back, you can see the difference between the player. And so you might say, even though player B is graded higher than player A looks a little better when you're looking at things back to back to back. So you might say, okay, let's change his grade a little bit. And so I don't just change it. I got to write a report to justify changing it. It's got to be in the system, and then, and since I ran the department, I could justify whatever I want, but still it would be with Jerry. So, okay, look, we want we want this guy to be a 67 instead of a 66. Okay, well, then I got to write a report with a 67 on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But then, you get in, you still got everything ranked according to stack by position, not stack best to worst.
Okay.
Okay, when you come in for your meetings in April, you're still going at it by position. So you restack by position. Then when you get done with that, then you start stacking best to worst.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering that. And Levante had asked that question 20 minutes ago, and you just answered it there.
20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I
That's
gave a
all it
long
takes.
answer.
No,
Let me
no.
shut the door here.
Yeah, take your time.
1 second.
Let's see what else I got here. Greg, I'm going to save that one, and I'm going to save that one. Flex says, I hope our first 3 picks can become building blocks on this team. And I agree with you, Flex. It's important. I think that these first 3-4 picks are guys that are going to be starters well into their second contracts, which is not what Ashton Genty would give us. Probably. Anyway, Cornelius is asking, is there any offensive lineman who's head and shoulders above the other offensive linemen in this draft? And I was doing some research on this myself, Greg, and I think Armand Membu is.
I was just going to say that one.
Yeah, I think he might be the best guy in this whole group.
I think he's the best offensive lineman.
I finally got one.
I'm not. Or if Campbell's there, you got to take him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm big on measurements. Always have been. I think I said this last week, but his arms, he'd have the shortest arms of any starting left tackle in the league. Okay, but this is even better. They do the wingspan, fingertip to fingertip.
Yeah.
His wingspan is shorter than his height, or the exact same thing as his height. You want 2 or 3 inches longer in wingspan than height. So he's 6'5" and something. His wingspan is 77 inches, which is 6'5".
Okay.
You want him 80, 79 and a half.
Now, which player is it you're talking about right now? Campbell. Okay, thank you. Just to make sure.
The wingspan is short. And I was like, so not only would he have the shortest arms, he'd have the shortest wingspan, which means his shoulders are narrow too.
Right.
Because,
okay.
when you're doing that, you're with your shoulders. So, there's just, it's a measurement thing. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think he's a guard. I really do. I don't think he's a tackle. Yeah, whoever drafts him will start him off a tackle, see how he does. If it fails him, if he's okay, he's okay.
This girl says my wife wants an additional 2 or 3 inches too, but she gets what she gets.
They all say that, don't they?
Yes, they do. It's funny that you brought up Campbell, because I was going to ask you. I saw Campbell's arm measurements, and they were 32 and 5/8, and
right.
the length that you ideally want is 33 inches.
That's the minimum you want.
Minimum, right? So is that, what is it? 3/8?
3/8 of an inch.
Yeah. Is that really that critical?
Well, when you're dealing with what the 33 is the minimum, because okay, now look at compared to Braxton Jones, who's like 35 and a quarter. Okay, compared to Amagaji, who's 36 and a quarter, or Braxton might be 35 and a half. They're both, they're both 35 plus and 36 plus. That's 2 inches.
Yeah.
I always like to use this thing, the analogy, and maybe people will understand. Go back to the cartoons when we were kids, and you got the bully, and he's holding off the little guy like this, and the little guy's going like this because he can't touch, he can't touch the other guy's body.
Yeah,
that's what the length is. It's leverage.
I thought also that you might respond to that with that Bill Belichick. I think it was Bill Belichick, or maybe it was Bill Parcells' response. If you start making exceptions, you'll have a team full of exceptions.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, moving on. Samo again. What goes into the decision, or what is the process of deciding to evaluate a college player for a position change? I ask because I really think that safety Nick Imanowari could be a stud middle linebacker.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
He's never played linebacker, to the best of my knowledge, and he's a hell of a safety. Because safety wasn't a big need, I didn't really do him. I did him this past week. He's freaking good.
Yeah.
And I had done Starks from Georgia because I had him to do for one of the agents I do work for. And Starks is great. Starks has good range, great ball skills. Emanuel might not have quite the ball skills that Starks have, but he can, and he's probably more of a strong safety than a free, but his range, he can play free. His range and his hands are good. His instincts are good. He's a killer when it comes to hitting. Now, I think he's like 220. I mean, could he be a Will? He'd be Will more than a Mike, but could he? Yeah, but this guy might become one of the better safeties in football. And you've got to have people on the back end too. So I would not make that change. I can't say no team wouldn't. I just, why have him do something he's never done?
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, Urlacher was a safety, but Urlacher was 245 pounds, 250 pounds.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a 30-pound difference between the two of them.
Interesting. Maddie, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, talking about Billy Bowman Jr., I like that safety. And Greg, we do have 4 safeties under contract for 2025, but none are under contract for 2026. So safety, to me, seems like an important position, particularly in that early day 3 era. Is that safe to say?
Well, right now, I'll tell you right now, day 3 is a problem. Know how many picks you got day 3?
Not enough.
2.
2? No, you got 3. Oh, yes, because of the trades. Yes. Oh, my goodness.
And, NFL.com mistakenly says the Bears got 4-114. No, they don't. Carolina has 4-114. It's a mistake on the thing. The Bears do not have a pick in the 4th round. So they got a first, 2 seconds, and a third.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got a 5th and a 7th.
Yeah. So let's put that to rest. I had not seen
That's why I think that's another reason why they're going to trade down.
Yeah, absolutely. Have to trade down. Absolutely. I mean, you got to have, like J2KO says, you got to have somebody to trade with. You just can't move down because you want to move down.
True. But, and in this draft, it can work both ways because I can't overemphasize this enough. After you get your first handful, and hopefully somebody wants one of the quarterbacks or 2 of the quarterbacks or whatever. Mel's doing his mock. I don't know if it comes out today or tomorrow, but he's got 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10. He's got the Ole Miss guy going 9th, right in front of
Jackson Dart. Wow.
Yeah. He did it just to mess with people.
Of course.
And,
he knows how to do it.
How about that? I give his, and I know who he gave the Bears for that.
That's great.
But anyway, that helps. But after you get the first group of players that are pretty good, the next 15 to 20 are the same player.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's who do you like? The fans can say, how can they give up so-and-so? Well, they're all the same.
Yeah. I agree. Levante asks, Greg, what is the single most important factor in having a great draft, or does that become a factor after contract extension? So 4 or 5 years down the line, is that when you can fairly more accurately assess what a draft, whether a draft is successful or not?
Well, the good question, but not a good question, only because, like here, you have a coaching change, and you had some players drafted under the old coaching system, and they might not be fits for the new coaching staff.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't mean they weren't good picks. They were good picks before. The key really is how many starters do you get? Potential starters, quality backup. And that is, and generally speaking, and I've said this a lot, anything you get out of a rookie is a bonus. So if you get a rookie coming in and playing, then and that, let me back up a little bit. That's another reason why I don't want to take a left tackle, because his chances of starting are about this much.
Yeah.
And so now you're wasting a pick. You want a guy that's going to be a difference maker. And if it's defensive lineman, then he doesn't necessarily have to start, but you want him playing 50% of the snaps because they play a rotation. So that, what available play time fits into the equation too. Like Membo, he's never played left tackle, so you can't say he's a left tackle. Is he going to beat out Darnell Wright? Is he going to beat out Jackson? Is he going to beat out Thuney? So why would you take him? And I get it, because he's real good. I get that. But are you going to take a guy in the first round to sit on the bench? That especially in the team where the Bears are right now, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make
so
sense.
That's another reason why you'd say, no, let's get out of this pick. We're still going to get a quality player, and we're going to get some more, because everybody says, people know what they're talking about, the best part of this draft is the second round and into the top of the third. So get picks there.
Indeed. Stewart, I'm guessing this is Shamar Stewart. Off the top of my head, I know it's risky, but really want Shamar Stewart at number 10. His ceiling is crazy good.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you. Okay, and I'll tell you why. How can you take a pass rusher who can't rush the passer?
It doesn't have any sacks. That's a problem.
Okay. And yeah, he's off the charts as an athlete. He has not turned that athleticism into production on the field. The most sacks he's ever had in a given season is 1.5. He had 1.5 as a freshman, 1.5 as a sophomore, 1.5 as a junior. And so to me, it's like, okay, you can say Mike Mamula. Remember Mike Mamula years ago? Okay.
Sure.
Mike Mamula had production, though. This guy's got no production.
Mm-hmm.
Plays the run pretty good. He has no pass rush production. And if you got a pass rusher that can't rush the passer, what do you have besides nothing?
Well, and Ben Johnson and Poles have talked about this in previous press conferences. They talked about the importance of pressure and disrupting the passer. And I saw somebody wrote that Stewart is pretty good at that. He's not great at finishing, but that he is good in terms of disrupting passes. Yeah. So, yeah, at the college level, right? So, I guess from an assessment standpoint, if one of your scouts says to you, I think he can improve because of the scheme we play, and another of your scouts say, well, I don't think so because such and such, how do you, as the director of scouting, mediate that?
I've been brought up to gravitate towards production.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you didn't do it at college, how are you going to do it at the next level? Which is the question I would, throw back and say, now, also, they just signed a guy that is basically that guy. Ode Bingo or wherever is.
Yeah, I'm still
We'll call him
working on
Bingo.
that. Yeah, there you go.
Odie. That's the same guy, except more production. He had 8 sacks his second year in the league.
Mm-hmm. Gustav says Danielle Hunter had 4.5 sacks in college, and look at what he has done in the NFL.
4.5 in 1 year, 4.5 total in college.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll see
I
if I
have
can
to go
find
back
that.
and look. I think he had more than 4.5 in Stewart has got 4.5 in his whole career, 3 full seasons.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to when we were talking about rookie contracts. Tom said, "Isn't the rookie contract cut off at 9, so that number 10 is noticeably lower?" And so I went back to look at NFL rookie contract scales. It is not. Number 9 is total value $24.6 million, and number 10 is $23.7 million, $11.22 million. It doesn't start to get appreciably lower,
And it'll go up 2 or 3% from last year.
So it doesn't start to become appreciably lower until you get to the teens, that area. Lee Everyday wants to know who, in your opinion, are the blue chip players in this class. I watched Mel, your good buddy Mel Kiper and Field Yates all the time on their show First Draft, and they've identified 4, maybe 5 blue chip players. What do you have?
Good question. I'd like to say Carter, Hunter. I don't know if I can come up with any after that.
Mason Graham?
His arms are too. I've had people tell me, well, we had Lance on a week ago or 2 weeks ago, said he likes the other guy better.
Yeah. Right.
And so I don't think he's a blue chip. Is he going to start? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be a Pro Bowler? Yeah. Maybe not. No, that's what I mean. You don't have top end quality in this draft. So, so you're saying who's going to be a Pro Bowler? If you want to say that, who could be? Mambu.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he's a freak athlete.
He really is.
For a guy that big, for 330 pounds.
Do you think Tyler Warren is close to being a blue chipper?
Tyler Warren's interesting. I want to see how he didn't work out. And I've done a lot because that's an interesting guy. Now, nobody has him being there at 10. Mm-hmm. So, but, what if he is? And the way he was used at Penn State, he was split out a lot. He was used really more as a quote wide receiver than a tight end. But when he was in tight, he was a little bit as a inline guy, more so as a wing. I would say he's a average blocker. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say good. A very good want to or willingness. So it's more, don't forget, he used to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
So what I look at is that, do they want to? Do they have that willingness? And if they have that, then you're fine. So he's got to get a little stronger. But in this case, he's never going to be a Y here. Okay. He's going to be a move tight end, but he's athletic enough. I think he's going to run like 4.65. I don't think he's going to be, like some of those guys that have come in and been low 4.5s, high 4.4s. And, we'll find out in the next week or so, whenever Penn State has their pro day, what he runs. But good player. When you look at what Johnson did at Detroit, he didn't play with a lot of 12 personnel.
No,
Played one tight end most of the time.
Really? Well,
Like
they
still.
had a lot of two tackle formations, right? Where they
I don't know, but I just that when you look at the production of number 2 and number 3 tight ends, they had no production. And
from a pass catching standpoint.
right,
Yeah, okay.
so I mean, they might have used them they're more blockers than
Yeah.
pass catchers.
Yeah.
So, he'd be changing his offense now. Could he play the role of, say, that Patrick and Reynolds played?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of big X type of guy. Why not? I mean, the guy he's a weapon. He's a very interesting thing. Again, I want to see before I'm 100% sold. I want to see because he's good. He's very good. And, because he was a quarterback, he can throw the ball. He doesn't throw very good. I can see why he's not a quarterback anymore. He's a lefty. But they do put him in the backfield as the quarterback and have him run with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretty good running with the ball. So, there are different things you can do with him. He's a real interesting guy. But I think Mel has him going 2 or 3 picks before us. He's got Genty going to the Raiders. I don't think that he gets to the Bears. Could he? If he's there, it's a really and they'll have that conversation before the draft even starts. Yeah. What they will do, there'll be a couple guys that they wouldn't trade down for. If that guy's here, we're taking him. But then the rest you could say, okay, we want out.
Okay. So I saw.
And by the way, before I forget,
Uh-huh.
we got a commitment from Dane Brugler to come on again.
Yeah, baby.
I got a text from him hour and a half ago.
Sweet.
The Beast comes out first week of April. Last year was around the 4th. So sometime between after the Beast comes out and the draft, we might have to, to make the schedules work, we might have to just pre-record it or something, but we
Absolutely.
will have Dane on. We'll have Dane on.
Love it. Love it. All right. Maddie goes to the top of the line here because, again, the $2 donation. Thank you, Maddie, very much. This is an interesting question because it has a lot of ramifications. He says, first pick to go, best player available. What if best player available is Warren or Genty? I got a feeling you're going to say who's best player available because every board is different.
Right. Who's best player? But chances are neither one is going to be there. And just because Genty is, and I'm just being hypothetical here, just because Genty is the fan base's best player,
Yes.
who's to say that he's the Bears' best player? I'll tell you the running back I'm gravitating towards is Ohio State kid.
Oh, Trevion Henderson?
No, the other one.
Really? Quinton Judkins.
Yes.
Oh, why? Tell me why you are gravitating towards
He's got
Judkins.
a total all-around game. He's got speed to break the long one. He's a punishing, he can be what you want to be. He's 221 pounds. He's a big dude now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is a big guy. All right, let me save that one, and
you're going to get him in the second round.
Oh yeah, it definitely should be available in the second round, unless we see a run on running backs earlier than we have, because all of a sudden it's a copycat league, right? The Saquon Barkley example is something that a lot of teams are going to follow.
Yeah, but Saquon Barkley is a low 4.4 guy or a high 4.3 guy when he came out.
Yeah, there's a big difference there.
That's something. Genty hasn't run yet,
mm-hmm.
And he's 5'8.5", 206 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not Saquon Barkley, who's 6 feet 230.
Big difference, definitely. Greg, where do you see Braxton's market at? Closer to Walker, a little $14 million, or Dan Moore's $20 million?
He's got to play this year.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? The guy at Oakland who was a backup got $20 million. By
That's
Kansas
right.
City.
Yeah.
So it's value of the position. He might very well be a $20 million player a year from now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Okay. You know, there's not going to be any contract extension for Braxton Jones during the 2025 season. The evaluation on whether the Bears will re-sign him will happen late in the year and maybe after the season. Is that fair to say, Greg?
Well, I would say more late in the year, during the year, than late in the season, because to get late in the season, his agent may be saying, I don't want to do one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that is the risk, of course, but
and that depends. But see, don't forget, I'm the one guy I'm saying Amagaji's going to take off.
Okay. I agree with that.
And I'm going to be surprised if he doesn't. Because if he doesn't, that means there's something missing. And we know it's not brain matter because he went to Yale, but something missing in football character or whatever that could prevent him from being the big player. Because the natural trait, there's not a tackle in this draft that has the natural traits that or Braxton. Neither one of them have the natural traits of Braxton Jones or Amagaji.
Okay. TJ Johnson, does Greg think it's possible they'd consider taking a safety, Starks or Barron, in the first if they trade down? And what are your thoughts on the defensive line?
Barron's I haven't done enough on Barron to say that. Starks is a late first.
Yeah.
What about the South Carolina kid? I mean, I'd take the South Carolina kid before I take Starks.
But you're not taking a safety in round one.
Safeties got to be really special to go in round one.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to think that they're special, that they're going to be a Pro Bowl player, and there's a lot of special to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hamilton, Notre Dame guy, he was supposed to be a lock first. He did go in the first, but he ran poorly. We're talking like high 4.6s, low 4.7s.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Baltimore still took him in the first because his tape was 4.5. And he's played like the 4.5. He's been a Pro Bowler already. Guy's a hell of a player. He had special to him. But, 3 years at Notre Dame, he showed that.
Okay.
But I gotta do more on Barron before I can, give an answer on that. And because I don't want to shoot the guy down without knowing enough about him.
Sounds fair.
Same thing with Campbell, a couple linebackers, Campbell from Alabama, who some people think might be an edge.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Alabama recruited him to be an edge, but then they had an opening and they wanted to get him on the field, so they made him a linebacker.
It worked out pretty well.
But they also had him play some edge.
Okay.
So maybe, that's an interesting guy.
Yep, definitely. Tooch is asking the question that we are all asking. What pieces of the puzzle does Greg think the Bears need, position-wise?
Well, we just signed a guy to be a slot receiver and a return guy, but is he the guy?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't pay him like he's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a solid wide receiver 3. Now, could that be a Warren? Yeah, could be. You need the defensive line is still 2 people, even though they signed 2, they're still 2 people away. Another edge. And I think this is me saying this, another anchor.
Okay.
Because Jared he's a 3 tech.
Jarrett is a 3 tech, and so.
But even though now you can't look at the defense like you did last year. You look at New Orleans, and a lot of times they got them lined up as 2-2s, head up on the guard stuff. They move them around, so it's not as stringent as Flus's defense, where there's always a 1 and there's always a 3.
Mm-hmm.
These tackles are moved around. Sometimes they're out at the 5.
Yeah.
So he moves them around a lot more than Flus did. So they got to have that capability. But I still think they need, Billings is one anchor. You need one other anchor.
Another nice big fat ass in the group. Okay, so Rondale Moore, breaking news. This was actually a number of people have brought this up over the last hour, that Rondale Moore is visiting today at Bears camp. Have you seen enough of Rondale Moore over the years to give us your opinion on him?
No, he's a run back, right?
No, wide receiver, I believe.
Oh, the wide receiver. Where's he from?
Let me tell you. I'll tell you where he's from. Rondale Moore, football wide receiver. He is played for the Falcons. He went to college at Purdue.
I know he's another little guy.
Yeah, 218. Yeah, another little guy.
Yeah, how big is
5'7",
he?
5'7", 180 pounds.
He's another little. He's a return guy. Another
Yeah.
little guy. Well, that just speaks to me, because I think they need another big guy, more like another Warren. I know more. Rondale Moore's like the guy they drafted, but not as big, or guy they just signed, but not as big.
Right.
And you know who's the unofficial scout of employed by the Bears, but not employed by the Bears as a scout? How about the quarterback ex-quarterback who was Pole's roommate,
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan from the Falcons.
Yeah, it sounds like Poles has been relying on Matt for some input on players, so that's probably
on this guy. How about the other guy, Zacchaeus? I think you say his name.
Yeah, Zacchaeus. Yeah,
he was a slot receiver for Matt Ryan.
Samo tells us Moore is a speedster, 4.29, explosive, 42 and a half.
I recall now that he went in that draft where they had a bunch of these little guys go high, like in the second round.
Anthony Miller was a second rounder, I believe, in that draft.
But he wasn't as small as these guys.
No, he wasn't.
Okay, and so everybody took him to be return guys and game breakers to go deep, but not a lot of them made it big because it's a big man's game. So, but they got a lot of speed.
In college at Arizona, when he played with the Cardinals, 1,200 yards in his first 3 years combined at Arizona.
Yeah,
he's productive, but I gotta believe that they want some competition at that slot receiver, so right. Zacchaeus and Moore will be fighting it out with others that they will acquire. And they want somebody to stretch the field.
Got some decent production.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had three really pretty, we're talking 30, 35 catches. And last year, I think he returned average was like 10 yards on punts. So it's a guy that is can do what you want because you don't have he's a 5'10" guy, but he's 200 pounds. So he's not a skinny 5'10" guy.
Okay.
And he ran a 4.48 coming out.
Not bad. Another running back that I'm hearing a lot of good things about, I haven't watched any of his tape yet, and it's DJ Giddens. Howie says he's actually a better athlete than Omarion Hampton.
That's a Kansas State guy. I haven't done him. Like the Kansas kid, Neil, I really like.
Yeah, everybody likes him. Jeez.
Neil's a good, but you know what? Neil didn't run good. I was surprised. I thought he'd be low 4.5s, high 4.4s, and he was like high 4.5s.
Yeah. And I saw with Neil, I saw breakaway speed.
Yeah, that's I was surprised but he's real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick.
But Giddens is somebody we'll be talking about more, Howie. Thanks for bringing up that name. Bill is asking, what are your thoughts on Watts, the safety from South Carolina? Did we already ask that?
No, Watts is from Notre Dame. He's a free safety, and he's got rare ball skills.
Xavier Watts. And
who used to be a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Recruited from Notre Dame to Notre Dame to be a wide receiver. After his freshman year, they moved him over to safety. led the country in 23 in interceptions. Still had a bunch this past year, not as many as the year before, but he's just got a knack for making the big play, really finds the ball really well. He's a pretty good hitter, but he's a pure free safety.
Yeah. You know, I'm laughing here at a comment from Carl, but he goes on to say, Omarion Hampton is a perennial 1,500-yard all-purpose
I think he's
back.
a first-round back, Omarion Hampton.
Really, first round. So he won't be available to the Bears unless they trade down.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he's a 20 to 32 pick in that area. He's a good player.
Okay. What I was going to ask you a follow up on Xavier Watts. If he's there at 39 or 41, the Bears seriously have to consider drafting him because he's such a good player.
It's as compared to who?
Well, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And so that's why I phrased it as consider drafting him.
Yeah. I mean, it's where is he on their board, and then as compared to who?
Yeah.
We used to do this one thing. Jerry and I used to. We never did mock drafts, but what we did do is we'd put these packages together. So we'd sit there, okay, let's say in the first round, we take this guy. Then we come back in the second round, we get this guy. Come back in the third round, we get this guy. And fourth round, we get this guy. Then we put another one together. Then we put another one together. Okay, then we go into the scouts. Which one do you like better? Which one do you feel is best for us? But that's the game, you know, and we do it like during the meetings, but like when you take a break from the meetings to get your mind off the going over the player, then we just do these drills and the coaches wouldn't be there. And we do these exercises with the scouts. And it was, number one, it was a lot of fun, but number two, you got conviction from the scouts on who they really liked when it's up on a board, say, okay.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of times when we came out with pretty much package number one.
Interesting exercise. Nowadays, of course, they bring in the analytics guy and they'll tell you there's a 75% chance that Roma Dunze will be there at number 9. So don't trade up for him, kind of stuff. Analytics, whole new game there. All right. Carl is asking me, can you please post this question that I posted an hour ago? What is the likelihood of Genty, Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, and Caleb Johnson all being gone by pick number 39? Highly unlikely.
I mean, that one of them is going to be there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. See, Carl, I didn't want to put that
probably a couple of them. I'll tell you the guy that could fall because he ran shitty unless he runs good at Iowa's Pro Day is Caleb Johnson. Everybody thought he was going to break 4.5 and he runs like 4.58 or something.
Yeah. Bad news.
Well, no, I mean, look at the production. His production's off the charts.
Yep.
But he didn't run as fast as people anticipated. So now, don't forget, he's a running back. So, you know, I think he will be there. I think they're going to have a choice of 2 or 3 in the second round.
Absolutely.
If they want to go in that direction.
Absolutely. Howie says or asks, can you speak on the top defensive tackles, specifically their pass rush skills? Kenny Grant versus Damon Harmon?
Derek Harmon from Oregon. Nolan's probably the best pass rusher. The guy I like the best of all 3, but might go third out of those is Grant. I think Grant is going to be a beast in the National Football League. He's still a young kid. He's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
From down the road. He's semi-local. He's from Maryville.
We know the Bears like the local guys.
He's just like figuring it all out, figuring out how good he could be. Nolan's a pure, If we were still drafting, looking for 3 techniques, he's a 3 technique. Probably played a little over 300, was 296 or 298 or something at the combine. He'll be a 300-pound guy. He's athletic. Probably the best pass rusher. Harmon, I thought, actually looked better at Michigan State than he did at Oregon. And I'm not taking away from his Oregon play. He was playing really a different position. He's a stud. I mean, it's for my liking. I like Grant and Harmon better than Nolan, only because you already got Nolan when you signed Grady Jarrett.
Yeah.
So and Jarrett, you put on the tape from last year, he could still play damn good. I mean, he's not going downhill. And I loved his press conference. I mean, he gets up there and he says, "Hey, if I didn't think I could do it, I wouldn't be here." A lot of confidence. And he's a guy, they say the kid from Tennessee, Pierce, might have some issues. Well, when you get a guy like Jarrett in the locker room, now you can go back to the Jalen Carter thing. With a guy like Jarrett in your defensive line room, now you can think twice about taking a guy that has some questions.
Do you think Harmon's getting back to Harmon? You think his skills transfer to the NFL? I gotta believe, yes.
Yeah, I like Harmon. Harmon's a good player.
Yeah.
And like I say, he showed me some things when I went back and looked at Michigan State tape from 23. I mean, he's stout at the point of attack, and he's strong. Played an entirely different scheme at Oregon, and still very good. I mean, he's a quality player. He's a solid first-round pick. Put it this way: you could put him in. You could put about 8 guys in that group at 10, and he'd be one. I mean, when you'd probably take him before. I personally love Banks. I'd love to take Banks on a trade down, but the guy from Michigan, because he's a freaking load.
Ooh, okay.
He's 330 pounds, 325 pounds, and you aren't moving him. So it's like, when the Bears played Tennessee in that opening game, they had those 2 big defensive tackles in there. And they try to, and they couldn't win the game, but they couldn't move those guys.
Yeah.
And I like anchors like that. And I think, but I'm not positive, that Allen wants somebody like that. Billings is one, even though he's short.
Right.
But you need another one.
On the same topic, Howie asked, would Kenny Grant and Derek Harmon be considered safe picks?
I meant Grant, not Banks. I said,
whereas Nolan, a lower floor yet highest ceiling.
Nolan's going to probably go before those 2. Nolan's a pretty good player. Now, some people have some negative things to say about him, and just that his personality.
Yeah. Well,
personality's a little different, but
he was involved in a recruiting issue when he first came, and then there were some, questions about his love of the game kind of stuff.
Well, it is. He's kind of a loner and kind of quiet.
Okay.
So, I mean, you try to watch that stuff. That's a guy you would bring in on a 30. Spend a lot of time with him, and you try to wash some of that stuff out and find out exactly what you have.
Yeah. Mr. Englewood is saying that Tank Johnson was a questionable character on defense, though. And so, don't you want guys with questionable characters on the defense?
Well, yeah, there's give and take now with defensive linemen, okay? Because remember definitions, he's a thug.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not taking an offensive lineman, you're taking a defensive lineman, His job is to hurt people.
That's right.
So temperament is a lot different.
I love it.
Owen was an offensive lineman with a defensive lineman's brain. So but yeah, and we talked about it a lot, with when we took Tank And there was questions because, I made a school call and they were killing them. And Marty, though, was the area scout, Marty Barrett, and Marty did a ton of work and really good work on the guy, and talked a lot. We went back to everything that's happened to this kid growing up to when he was like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. I mean, we had a ton of stuff on Tank, and we knew it was going to be an issue. And jokingly, we're talking, and Lovey says, "Well, I can put a addition on my house, and he can live there." That's a quote. No.
You got to do what you got to do to win the game, win games. All right. So let's go to AW. It looks like the Bears would be drafting offensive line for depth. When would you draft offensive line for the Bears? And would you draft Membo?
I love Membo. I just can't see him drafting him. I think he's going to be gone now anyway. I think
It looks that way, right?
Offensive lineman off the board. Yeah, I mean the guy's freaking good, but the thing is, where's he going to play here? And don't tell me left tackle because he's never played it. I'm not saying he can't play it, but he's never played it.
Would you, if somebody on your staff said, I think he's a developmental left tackle and we can plug him in at guard if we need interior play, but he can't develop.
I mean that the coach has got to be on board.
Right.
And the coach got to say, I can do it. Okay, then go ahead. But it's now, in fairness, he has played a little from a left-handed stance when Mizzou went to a unbalanced line, but it was always never passing. It was always run. He would go over to the left side and be almost like the tight end. They'd have two tackles, center, guard, tackle,
right,
and be unbalanced on that side. And he'd be in a left-handed stance, and he was fine. But you never saw him set and come up and pass pro from that. I'm not saying he can't do it.
Yeah.
Part of the workout, you do that for part of the workout. I mean, yeah, you can't rule it out, but you got to be saying he can do it.
Makes sense.
Because you've extended Jackson. Chances are they already have, or they're going to extend Thuney. So he ain't playing inside.
Unless, I mean, you're not going to replace Drew Dahlman at center, that's for sure. So you make a very good point.
So unless you're saying he can do it, then then it's like, do you want to take a guy that's not going to be playing?
That's a great question. One that was asked by Kay a little while ago. Do you draft at depth at number 10 or even your second round picks?
No. I mean, you want a guy who's going to step in and play.
Yeah. See, but here's the issue. Ben Johnson keeps talking about the need to have quality depth at the trenches. So if you're going to acquire quality depth, then doesn't that mean drafting a guy with at least one offensive lineman in your top
does
three
that mean
picks?
The first round?
No, but
okay. Look at where you just signed three guys, traded and signed three guys. Look where they all got drafted. Did any of them get drafted in the first round? Besides none?
None. None did. None out of none university. All right, I get it. Moving on. This was issued a while ago. Greg, in my opinion, Xavier Watts would be the best fit because he's the best ball hawk safety in this draft, but he can also play in the box and lay the wood on guys. Do you like him for the Bears? That's Tim Willis.
Yeah, it's where do you take him?
He's available.
That's another reason. Okay, what do you need? You maybe need a safety. That depends on the health. You need at least one more offensive lineman more for depth. You need, in my opinion, a slot or another. You don't have a true wide receiver 3, so you need a wide receiver somewhere. You need a 2 defensive linemen, and you got 4 picks in the. You got more needs than you got picks. Now, if you trade back, now you can start getting this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another reason to trade back.
Absolutely.
And they're running out of money to be signing. They're not running out of money. They can restructure. They can create another $30 million if they wanted to. It's, do they want to do it?
No.
And it has no effect. It has no effect really on the Bears or the player. It only changes the accounting. Theoretically, let's just say that because I don't have the contract in front of me, that Sweat's contract says he gets $20 million in salary this year.
Mm-hmm.
So you write him a check for $18 million now as a bonus.
Gotcha.
So you're prepaying him for the year.
Right.
And then he gets $2 million during the year. And now you put that on, tack that bonus into the rest of the year, and now it brings his cap number down.
Mm-hmm. So there's ways to play around it. What you don't want to do is what Ryan Pace did, which is create a lot of credit where you got all these deferred payments and now you're in cap hell.
Well, that's what happens when you start with questionable players. You have voided years, or you start doing with guys. Okay, perfect example. The Saints they had no cap money. They were way over. They had to create it. So they turned Carr's salary into a bonus. Quarterback. But is Carr in their future?
No.
He's an older quarterback. Mel told me yesterday it's one of the reasons he's given New Orleans the Ole Miss quarterback. In his current rep, because he knows that by next year, Carr might not even be there. So if he's not there, then all that money they turned into bonus this year gets absorbed next year, unless you make them a post June 1st cut, and then it's 2 years. It's extended over 2 years. But
right.
You still got to pay the piper.
Still got to pay the piper. Absolutely. All right, let's. Where are we in time? We've got a few questions left here. So, let's see. Kay is asking, what's the balance of talent in the top 2 rounds? Does it make it less likely for trades? And so I'm assuming the balance of talent being positional talent is what I'm assuming the question is.
The draft in the second and the top half of the third is outstanding as far as getting players that can help you. Mm-hmm. So you want to get more players in those areas. You got to have somebody that is driven for a certain player to move up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's too early to play that game. You don't start, when you're dealing with the first draft pick, that was different. And you made the trade early because it was the first pick in the draft. But, it's the 10th pick in the draft. Can you tell me who the first 9 are going to be? No. So why, so we don't know that. So why would somebody make that trade now for 10? Mm-hmm. Could it happen? Yeah, it could happen, but it's highly unlikely. But as teams get through this month and the coaches are involved and they start falling in love with players, then they get into their meetings in April and they got to go, we got to find a way to get this guy. This is the guy that can be the difference maker for us. Right. And so now it's, even though everybody's looks about the same on paper, grade wise, I guess we got to trade up to get them. Mm-hmm. And so then, how far do we got to go? Well, maybe Chicago wants to move. And, it's in the week leading up to the draft that some of these or most of these calls are made, and they're just exploratory. Because it generally, when you're at 10, you're not trading that pick until you're on the clock.
Okay. Lee is asking, what's your take on Jack Sanborn not getting re-signed?
I already know the answer. He can't run. And I'll tell you, that's really what it is.
Why would
Good
he
football
refuse
player
for him?
can't run. He was like, a 4.77, and they're looking for more speed.
So, but his instincts are so
Instincts
damn
are
good.
great, but they, the new staff came in, they looked at the tape, and they said, yeah, he's okay. But, if you put a tender on it, was going to cost you over $3 million.
And they need every penny they can get right now.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not worried about that. But, and there was one guy the other day, not here, somewhere else, where they tendered him, but then they re-signed him anyway and gave him less money, but they gave him 2 years with some guarantees. I forgot what team it was, but they gave him, like, the tender was over 300. They ended up giving him 2.5, but they guaranteed him, some money and gave him a 2-year deal. So what's better? Because when you get a tender, it's not guaranteed money. It just means what your salary is. So the guarantee's in your pocket.
You talked about this player a little bit last week, Jihad Campbell. That guy can run. He's not going to be available in the second round. He's a for sure first rounder, right?
He's a first.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a guy because, I didn't look at linebackers in need, but he can run and he can be an edge. Like, that's how Alabama used him. And he was recruited actually to play edge. And then they had to move him into linebacker. He was pretty good there. So, interesting guy. I got to do more work on him.
Yeah. Speaking of
I will do that this week.
Great. Speaking of interesting guys, Kelvin Banks is getting a lot of attention. He's young at 20. I didn't realize he was that young. Still growing, got enough talent athletically and physically to be a good left tackle. Do you agree with the assessment on Banks? I saw Danny Shimon's report on it. It was similar to Dane Brugler saying the kid ends up on the ground a lot.
He had some really good games early in his career. And so going into this season, he was, placed real high, top 10 guy.
Right.
And one of the questions on him was, he had no verified measurables on him. So he was listed at 6'4", 220 or something. So, okay, now it was, well, is he 6'3.5" or 6'4.25"? Well, it turns out you get to combine, he's 6'5". And he's got 34.25 inch arm, something like that. So that part's fine. But you look at the tape, and this year's tape was good, wasn't great. I remember I talked to, it was just a text conversation with Dane. He goes, I don't get it. I don't get why people like him so much. He goes, I'm going to have him in the top 20, 25, but I don't see what this is him saying this. But now, fast forward, he plays, and he was having a decent season. Then he gets hurt. I think he had an MCL strain, but I'm not 100% sure. Misses at least 2 games, might have missed 3. Comes back to play in the SEC championship game, and then in the playoff games. I'm not going to say he was terrible, but he wasn't very good. More so in the playoff game. I mean, he gave up one playoff game. I think he gave up 2 sacks or something. It just, now, could it have been he's still hurting? Absolutely. You don't, because he had that knee injury during the year. But I just, you trade down and you're picking at 19 or 20. Yeah, I'm not going to complain. I'm never going to take him at 10.
Swifty points out that Banks' problem is his worst game came on the biggest stage against Georgia. How much do scouts put on a bad game against a good team? Do you take out the top?
You want to look at matchups. So, whenever I do anybody, I want to, I look at and I've got the tape for literally every single college game that was played this year. So it's like, okay, who's got, say I'm doing an offensive lineman, who's got the best defensive tackles? Who's got the best defensive ends? I want to look at those games first to see how he plays against real good guys.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, I think we got a couple left, and then we'll get you out of here. Flex is asking, what teams would you guess would want to trade up? I think that's one that will take a little research on our part. Maybe we can address that next week.
I'd have to look. I was thinking, one time Atlanta, I think, is at 15. I thought they might have, but then you look, they got no picks.
Yeah,
they got no picks.
Right.
So you can count them out.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you want to look and see who's got extra picks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because now if they're really driven, what I wouldn't want to do for this year is, some people would do, but take a pick next year.
Right.
It better be a damn good one if it's going to be a pick next year.
If you're going to do that. Yeah, somebody had asked, would you trade your first rounder this year for a first rounder next year? And that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Yeah. All right. Lee Bruin says that Dallas might move up for Gentry, and that's a good point. They might, if Gentry is there.
We got to get the name right.
Gentry. I'm gonna always get names wrong.
Yeah, but if they do that, everybody's got the Raiders going there. I don't know why that's the pick, because they don't really have a top running back. They signed a guy in free agency, but he's 33 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the betting favor right now, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Dallas could want to go up there.
What do you think about fan favorite Cameron Scadaboo? Could it be a good compliment at running back?
He didn't run yet. I don't think he's going to run worth a damn. So if he runs fast, I'm going to be surprised, and then I'm going to like him better. I think he's going to be a 4.65 guy, 4.62, something like that. I don't think he's tough.
Yeah.
I don't think he's very fast.
David Montgomery was a 4.61, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
but then he ran at Iowa State, and everybody throws it out. He ran in the 4.5s.
Really? Okay.
He ran like 4.53, 4.54, and that's what he played at.
Questions are coming in about Darius Alexander. Brent asks, Greg, how do you feel about Darius Alexander as a defensive tackle? Good speed, long arms.
Parker is his agent. More of a 3 technique. He's old now. He's like 25. He's a good player, but do you want a 25-year-old at a premium pick? Double check, he might be 24, but he might also be turning 25 this year before the season's out. So but he's a good player.
Yeah, he is a very good player. AW asked, Greg, did you scout Bill Belichick's gymnastics for him on the beach with his girlfriend?
No.
I didn't either. You want to comment on Bill Belichick and his girlfriend being, he's asked all emails that sent to him his girlfriend be copied
on.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Personal secretary.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
You'll tell me later.
No, I don't. Man, that's very matter of factly.
All right, we'll end with this one from Holly. Can you speak on Josh Reynolds and tall, deep speed DJ Shark? Both have experience.
Chark, no. DJ Chark gets hurt more than Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He looked brittle to me.
I looked at he has never played a full season.
Yeah.
And he's missed more games in the last 4 years than Tevin has missed in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Reynolds is an interesting guy, and you're going to get him cheap. But, they signed the guy from, last week. How do you say his name? Zacchaeus or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was with Washington last year. Played pretty good. He was their number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Before that, he was the number 3 in Atlanta, and he can return punts. Then they're bringing in Rondell Moore today. You know, I don't know. That tells me no, but maybe. I mean, you're gonna 2 weeks from now, he's still going to be available.
Yeah. Right. All righty. I think that's good.
There's some big receivers still out there, that nobody's touched.
Like who? Can you think of a name? Because let me look at the list here. Free agent.
Or, the guy from Buffalo who went to Houston. He only catches 100 balls a year.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, you can get some balls.
Yeah. No, there's a bunch. There's like 5, but they're all money guys. And all of them are getting a little older. And so now it's like, yeah, but do I want to pay them?
Yeah.
And so now they're going to wait, and then they're going to have to come on your terms, not on their terms.
Do you like Juju Smith-Schuster? Hell no.
He re-signed with Kansas City over the weekend.
Yeah, this list from Spotrac seems like it's a little late. Well,
no, if they're in the top part, if they're in the top part, they show them signed. They just don't have a figure next to it.
Oh, okay.
The bottom part, they're free.
All right. Well, we'll investigate further on that next week. Greg, this has been a fun 2 hours, hour and 50 minutes and counting. Any final thoughts about the process? This was the theme of the show, the process about what scouts, what the GM are doing to prepare for or conducting pro days, preparing for the draft.
Just regardless of the team, when you see so-and-so wants so-and-so, it's not true. It's somebody's guessing that, because decisions, this is an information gathering month. Unless you got the first pick or second pick in the draft, nobody's made a decision. And they're going to make a decision next month when they put everything together. And I've done this too many times, and they've gone into these meetings and have no idea going into the meeting what we're going to do. And then coming out of the meeting, I know what we're going to do, but not going in, because you flush everything out.
Yeah. Swift Sports Network, your good buddy Swift, our good buddy Swift. Yeah. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs are 2 prominent free agents still out there.
Diggs probably wants a lot of money. I mean, the guy's very good. He's also a pain in the ass. Nobody is. He's a wide receiver. He's a diva. He's selfish. He's an I, me, my. I don't think Amari Cooper can run a lick anymore. He was fast when he came out, but I don't think he can run anymore.
Yeah.
Because, he went to Buffalo. Buffalo gave up a pick to get him at the trade deadline. Really did nothing in Buffalo, and he looks slow.
All right. We got a lot more football talk. I mean, a lot more. And Greg and I will be back here next Monday.
The best time of the year for me.
It definitely is fun. There's no doubt about it. And as somebody said, Lee Bruin just says, thank you for common sense in this crazy part of the football season. Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and Greg is good at dicing some of that stuff out. All right.
Don't believe anything. They're all lying.
There you go. Everybody's a liar.
I got one thing I got to tell you, though, when we get off. So.
Okay. Catch us tomorrow at 9 p.m., 8 p.m., I think we'll start, and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody.